Detroit Lions fans, why the dramatic entrance? Because we have to have a conversation that is going to be dramatic for some. And that conversation is this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have our first playoff game at Ford Field. And that playoff game will involve the guy who used to quarterback here for 12 years, never won a playoff game, and then asked to be traded in 2021. The Lions allowed this man to pick where he wanted to be traded. He goes off to win the Super Bowl his first year away from the city of Detroit. And we had, in my opinion, the biggest piece of blasphemy in Detroit in the history of sports, which was a combination of a Lions-Rams logo that became the Detroit Rams. And in this trade, the thing that gets lost was a 26-year-old quarterback by the name of Jared Goff. Jared Goff is the guy who the LA Rams decided that they were going to include in the trade. They gave up Jared Goff, a third-round pick, which turns into Ifeatu Melifonwu, and 2 first-round picks. And we already know Jameson Williams and the trade, all the pieces that came from that trade. And we are about 16 hours or so, maybe a little more, maybe 18 hours or so into the matchup being final, maybe almost a day by the time you see this video. And all I have seen is Matthew Stafford's return to Detroit. Now, I've made videos about it because that's what the NFL wants to see. The NFL has made this about Matthew Stafford. That's why I talked about Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit. But Jared Goff gets lost in this whole conversation. And I think he gets lost in the conversation because he went to a Super Bowl. He lost that Super Bowl, and his offense put up 3 points. And I'm going to say this to Detroit Lions fans. There should be no doubt in your mind who you cheer for. There should be zero conflict who you cheer for. And if there was ever a time for you to get behind Jared Goff, now is the time. No matter what you feel about Goff and the future, now is the time to back your Detroit Lions quarterback, Jared Goff. There's not going to be any transitions this video. There's not going to be anything else. Just you and I, one fan to another, having a conversation about our quarterback. Jared Goff is the one with something to prove. As a fellow chip on shoulder guy, I know how he's feeling. St. Brown yesterday put up over 100 yards again, had the biggest play of the Lions season on a 70-yard reception. And the swag that he had after the game was over. He said, I don't know how you get 1,500 yards and don't make the Pro Bowl or whatever he said. And you can see the swag, man. St. Brown is becoming that swag guy. He wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid. And this guy came into the league with a chip on his shoulder. And now he set the mold for everybody after him to remember the people that were drafted before him. Our team is full of misfits. That's what we are. Khalif Raymond, been on like 5 or 6 teams. He's been a journeyman. Before he found the Detroit Lions as a home, he was a journeyman. Josh Reynolds left the Rams, discarded by the Titans, came here. Jared Goff came here, right? Literally thrown in the trash. He was on the St. Brown Brothers podcast not too long ago, and he literally talks about it. You can see him getting emotional. He talked about how it went down. He said it was very tough emotionally. It was very difficult. So just a little history on how the trade went down. Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford asked to be traded. He asked to be traded. I remember where I was. I was at Best Buy. I was doing some shopping, and it came over the internet. Boom, it broke. Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions are mutually agreeing to part ways. Now, of course, he's still under contract with the Detroit Lions, and they had agreed to part ways. Broke the internet. So within a few days, there's some Carolina Panthers, the Indianapolis Colts, some teams come up, and the LA Rams kind of come out of nowhere. They come out of nowhere. And so it starts heating up. So leading up to the trade, we hear that Sean McVay is in Cabo with their center at the time, Andrew Whitworth, Matthew Stafford just happens to be there. A few days later, the trade was done, and Matthew Stafford was traded to the Detroit Lions. To the LA Rams. Jared Goff didn't even know he was traded. All of this is happening. This whole thing is happening. He doesn't even know. The trade is already done. And that's when he finds out that he's been traded to the Detroit Lions. Now, as a Detroit Lions fan myself, as a guy who sat there during the 0-16 season, I could only imagine how he felt coming to this team after the abomination that was Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. I can only imagine after sitting through the misery. This is our first playoff appearance in 7 years. You go from a team that's winning games, that has appeared in the Super Bowl. You are 1-0 against Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback in our generation, right? And you are traded to the Detroit Lions, who nobody wants to be here at the time except us, because we don't have a choice. And neither did Jared Goff. And from the moment he's been here, we have never given him, and when I say we, I'm speaking for some of you so-called Lions fans. You have never, ever given this man a chance. He can't win. He can't throw a deep ball. He can't do this. He can't do that. The statistics of Jared Goff, outside of the most turnovers since 2019, all the bad stuff that we know, are pretty good. They're pretty good. Matthew Stafford holds the record. He has tied the record for consecutive games with pick sixes, not Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford threw 17 interceptions in the same year he won the Super Bowl, not Jared Goff. There are things that come into play, collective. So I'm going to ask you that whatever feelings you have about JG, cast them aside. As long as we're in the playoffs, and support, especially this week, because the narrative, every single YouTube video that I've seen is talking about Matthew Stafford and his return to Detroit. No one, or very few people, are talking about Jared Goff. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say. And I already know how it's going to go. He's not really going to talk about it. He's not going to talk about it. He's going to be working very hard this week. And I'm going to tell you what, and this is real talk. That team of misfits that we have, Khalif Raymond, St. Brown being the 4th round pick, Aiden Hutchinson being the number 1 pick for most of the time leading up to the draft, Jacksonville passing on him, and him having the better career so far than Trayvon Walker. Bunch of misfits. Some guys I didn't want on this team. Wasn't really happy about them when we signed them. You better believe that they're going to play for their quarterback on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side. Whatever feelings you have about Matthew Stafford, I assure you that he does not care about them. When the game kicks off, he said it yesterday. They interviewed him. I just didn't want to bring it in, this video. I want to hear what my quarterback has to say. He said, he had a comment about, they haven't had a playoff game in 30-something years. I'm like, you know what it is. You know what it is. Don't act like you don't know what it is, because you were here and you were part of that record. It's only been 2 years, 2.5, almost 3, was officially been 3 since you've been gone. Don't act like you don't know, right? He said 30 years or whatever. 30 years or whatever, or whatever. When somebody says or whatever, it's like, He said, when I'm on a football field, it's about business. It's about taking care of business. None of that stuff matters. None of that outside noise. Oh, I used to be here, blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff matters in between the hashes. That's how you need to be. Cast all that love, the Detroit Rams, all that Matthew Stafford, we raised him, all that stuff. Cast that mess aside and support the guy who currently quarterbacks your team. I want you to think about this, and I'll wrap the video up here. Detroit has always been outcast from the city itself, the crime, the ideal of what the city of Detroit is. It's always been on the negative side. Jared Goff came here. He didn't complain. He put in work. Just 2 short years ago, we were 3-13-1. Didn't win our first game until week 13. If there's if there's ever been a time to support your team and your current quarterback, It needs to be now. Because I could only imagine what Jared Goff is feeling right now. Matthew Stafford, he went to the destination of his choosing. He won a Super Bowl. He's got all the attention. This whole return to Detroit is all about him. Very few people are talking about the man that was caught up and blindsided during the same trade. So with that being said, I will boo Matthew Stafford till I don't have a voice left. And I will support my quarterback, good or bad. I will be behind Jared Goff and my Detroit Lions as long as he is here. And I want him to have the greatest game of his career, because I can only imagine what he's feeling right now. And I can only imagine that he wants this win more than anything else. He probably wants to win this game more than he wanted to win the Super Bowl back in 2018. And that's real. As a fellow vagabond and reject myself, I know what it feels like to be outcast. I know what it feels like to not be looked at. I know what it feels like to seem like you don't exist, to be good at what you do but overlooked continually. I know what it feels like. But I tell you what, it has become one of my greatest strengths. And I think that Jared Goff is the same way. And I don't know about you, but I will be supporting him with everything that I have. So just a conversation between you and I, because it needs to happen. And this week, don't think about Matthew Stafford. Don't think about Kelly Stafford. Don't think about the Detroit Rams. Don't think about the 4 little girls that they have. Think about the guy that was here and was given no choice but to be here and has led this team to the first NFC North title in history and the first playoff game at Ford Field in history. Show Jared Goff the respect he deserves. And let's go get this W. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.